My fund is a shareholder of OneSoft Solutions. So, Brendan, thanks for being here. Maybe can you just start with a quick elevator pitch? Tell us about what OneSoft Solutions does.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Brandon Taylor, President and COO. So OneSoft Solutions is a SaaS software company focused on data science, machine learning, and the oil and gas space. Today, we have 16 customers. We launched at the Microsoft Incubator in 2016. Our customers operate about 260,000 miles of pipe. About 134 of it is ingested into our solution. And these are Fortune, 2 super majors that are in process of rolling our solution across the world. Fortune 100, Fortune 500 type enterprise companies.
All right. Before we dive deeper into the business, could you just share a bit more about your personal background and how you joined OneSoft?
Sure. So out of college, my undergrad is in MIS. Then I got an MBA that's an emphasis in finance. This is my 4th startup. Prior to this, 6 years ago, most of our company knew nothing about oil and gas. And people ask me why this industry. If you look at curves on industries, oil and gas specifically is a pretty laggard industry. They're typically very late in adoption. When we first started engaging with the industry back in 16 and 17, our very first client, Phillips 66, we were their very first SaaS solution. They'd never seen a SaaS agreement. And that's basically changed over time from a digital transformation. And we like to think that our company, OneSoft, is actually an impetus on why that change is happening. We've actually started almost on every customer, basically help them drive the transformation from cloud, SaaS, machine learning, those types of things like that. So that's kind of the background.
So you mentioned SaaS. Can you expand a little bit on the business model, the revenue model, and also maybe how you go to market, the sales strategy?
Sure. So as a startup in a laggard industry, we follow a principle. Eric Rees put a book together called The Lean Startup. In that book, it's about, minimally viable. There's probably not a software company, Microsoft included, that doesn't follow kind of the principles behind that. Consumption economics is another model that we talk about, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But we've pivoted now, I think, 5 times on our pricing model. When we first entered into the industry, we wanted to be very disruptive. Back of the napkin, we said, okay, this is the Netflix, the Google of pipeline integrity management. We came out as an X per mile per month. Phillips signed up under that model. And then they're the ones that fed back to us that the industry wasn't ready. A lot of this is sometimes you can get ahead of yourself. Industry wasn't ready for that. We pivoted to more of an operational model where they run these tools, and we started charging. They've caught up now. Our last client basically said, your model, you need to pivot again. This is maybe 3 years ago, and just get us to one number. They're now ready for that per mile per month. So we've embedded, our hard costs we're Microsoft shop. So Microsoft's cloud is Azure. We've embedded that, the price for our solution and any other costs into one number, and it's variable based on mileage. What that means is operators ingest miles into our solution. That's what they're charged on. And as they go through those tiers or miles, the larger operators, obviously, there's volume discounts on mileage as they go. So we have a tiered per consumption model on mileage ingested plus functionality. That's what we mean by SaaS. So, and when you hear me talk, probably, I'm sure Matthew's going to ask me questions about, what do you offer? We have, multiple modules within that. As we build new IP and release that and monetize that, we actually charge for the IP, which is incremental to that per mileage charge. So it's per mile, per functionality on a tiered basis. One more thing, sorry. I always get this question. We're unique in that these are large enterprise Fortune 500 companies, and they're not going to pay us monthly in most cases. We do have some that do. But typically their accounting systems aren't positioned to do that. So they figure out what their consumption is going to be for the year. And then they write us a check, issue us a PO and write us a check at the beginning of that contract term. We put that in deferred revenue. We burn it down. Next year, they figure out what their consumption is, give us another PO in cash. We get all of our cash up front, which is super good from an operations perspective.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the SaaS model, that's for sure. You mentioned coming out with new modules to basically be able to upsell your customers. Can you give us a sense of the opportunity to expand inside your current customer base right now with maybe new modules, but also with them ingesting more miles over time into the OneSoft software?
Okay, so there's two fundamental questions that's really exciting from our perspective on that. The industry is actually going through some consolidation within the space, and what I mean by that is one of our larger companies, Energy Transfer, has actually bought 2 or 3 companies, 2 other pipeline companies, and when they do that, they basically started ingesting those miles. Phillips 66, our first customer, just bought DCP. Very large organization. They're just finishing up ingesting those miles. So there's that consolidation that's happening in industry. When we first started, all of our customers, and this is still held true even through today, 80%, we do integrity management. So what that means is basically predictive maintenance. US, for those that aren't familiar with the space, that's about 2.7 million miles of pipeline. About 660,000 of that is what they call piggable regulated pipeline. The government basically mandates that they run these tools on that if you're liquid every 5, if you're gas every 7. So you're going to continually monitor and inspect this infrastructure. And it's very critical infrastructure. Very difficult now because of social license to install new pipeline, lots of regulatory hurdles. They're doing it related to hydrogen and CO2. But in the interim, they really have to maintain this existing infrastructure. So when they do that, that mileage comes in, right? So from our perspective, that consolidation is going to continue. The other thing that's important is 80% of our customers were running their integrity programs using Microsoft Excel. Now, as a SaaS software individual that's been in software for his life, when I hear Excel, I get really excited because it's not an enterprise system. Integrity engineers think it is, but we all know in software that it's not. And ultimately, they're going to have to get off it, and the government's helping them drive them off of that from a change perspective. But what that really tells you is that there's just a lot of white space. Everything is done in Excel. There aren't meetings that I don't go to where senior VPs basically, can you help us with this? Help us with this. And then our job as a software company is to make sure that we're prioritized and that we've picked elements under that consumption economic model that we can monetize. Because there's some things that they're willing to pay for and some things that they won't. And so we have to make sure that we prioritize that list of things and deliver on that list. Now, what the beauty is that we have a product steering committee now made up of our customers. So this is the Chevron, the Exxon, the Phillips, the Energy Transfers. We sit in a room twice a year. Here's the stuff we're hearing from your people. These are director and VP level people. Help us reprioritize that list. And by the way, if we do it, this is something that you're going to be willing to pay for. And that's proven out. A couple of years ago, they said internal corrosion is something we need to be solved. We built that module, we launched it. We're now getting adoption across our customer base to bring that in. So if we charge X per mile on our core product, which is Cognitive Integrity Management, SIM, we now charge X plus some percentage increase on internal corrosion. This year we released crack management. Again, it's starting to get adoption as it goes. And the thing that is frustrating to us is to invest is the level and the pace of which adoption happens. This is something where cracks on pipes have been there for decades, and they've picked a model. It takes moving heaven and earth to basically get them to shift to a new model. It has to go through a bunch of research people, make sure it's regulatory approved, et cetera. And then they have to make internal, what they call integrity management program changes to their program that they can then defend to regulators. God forbid they had a release on their pipeline on why they switched. All of that has to happen. But once they do it, then they adopt, and then we get that consumption model. So we've released those three. We're working on external corrosion, which is very significant because it opens up to 2.7 miles of pipe for us. Risk management, which is another important thing because are you going through schools, near schools, high consequence areas, stuff like that. And then we're working on geohazards. There's been pipeline releases around geohazards right now. That will help us drive what we call our whole solution that gets us into that kind of crossing the chasm model of early majority, late majority, and the rest of the laggards in the industry. That was a long answer. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. So you touched on Excel. Your customers typically using Excel before switching to your solution. Can you explain maybe what's the main pushback that you're getting from customers to adopt your solution?
So it's varied across any complex. This is a complex enterprise sell. It isn't just, this is not, B2C. This is a B2B sell at a complex enterprise Fortune 500 companies. So in it, you've got IT contingencies, depends on if the organization, our latest client was Enbridge, the gas side of that organization. And historically, they've been a build-it-themselves organization. So there was a lot of friction within the IT organization on they wanted to build it versus pick a OneBridge. And obviously they went with us, but there was a lot of politics involved with that. That's just one example of things that we run into. Some organizations are very specific on, they're more GIS centered type organizations, and they kind of drive the organization. But first and foremost, probably the number one thing that we run across, if there isn't anybody in the industry that doesn't know who we are, and I would state that globally. Last year, I went to a conference in Berlin that's a pipeline technology conference, and we went again. When we showed up and walked around to the booth similar like this, they knew who we were. First, potential prospect we saw there said, "Oh, OneBridge, the Conquerors are here," right? So we landed in EMEA, right? Hence, we've since hired an employee to start opening up EMEA. But the main objective and why it takes a long time in this industry is all about change management. Doesn't know when they see it, they want it. And that goes across the organization. The question I get the most from senior leadership at pipeline operators, how can we do it? That's the question. It's about change. Do we have the right people? Will they, we got to move people around. So we've known people have actually made changes to accommodate a solution like ours to start coming into organization to help them with that transformation. But change is the thing that we're up against right now. And we're working towards things to fix it.
Okay, now let's move on to probably my favorite topic about OneSoft. What's the moat? What's unique about the solution? And maybe if you can talk as it relates to the competitive landscape currently.
So the most unique thing, people ask me this question all the time is, do you have any competition? And we have yet to be in a competitive situation. And what I mean by that is in our previous software companies, it was we show up, the customer would say, vendor A showed us this feature and how they did it and this feature, please show us. We have yet to been asked that question. It's us versus what they do today. That's the question. We're always watching it, and we've actually kind of driven some legacy people out of the industry. They've actually sold their businesses, so which is really encouraging to us. We watch our website. It's very significant, the traction we get on our website from competitors because they're watching how disruptive we're being in the industry. So just the moat that we're building, but the most exciting thing to us and what is something that we haven't monetized yet is what we're calling data as a service. It's the first time in the industry, literally the first time in the industry where pipeline operators have actually given their data to a third-party vendor like OneSoft. We basically aggregate all of their tool vendor data that they've ran forever on the pipeline. So this is like, all the way back to 1980. That data on all of their pipe stuff has been ingested into our solution. All of their internal corrosion, their chemical spend, all of the data around the pipeline we're ingesting. And as we build new modules, we're expanding the footprint of how much data we have across that. And that gets us into our first and foremost related to our mission statement, which is predict pipeline failures to save lives and protect the environment with the assistance of data science, machine learning. What we want to be able to do with that data is be able to figure, number one, is how do we predict pipeline failures? Just as an example, our data science team had ran an experiment a month ago across an operator's pipeline and basically showed them where they might have potential internal corrosion failures. We can now show operators where that's happening. Our challenge and what we get excited about is how we can figure out how to monetize that. Because it's very significant from an industry perspective. Every year they figure they're going to have some level of what they call a dig program. And it's a very expensive budget. I'm going to find threats in my pipeline. I got to go out to the field, dig it up, and put a sleeve on it, recode it, repair it. And I'm going to do that every year. That's just a part of the program. They want to make sure they've got the highest priority items in order of which ones they're digging. Are they fixing the right stuff? That's the net of it, right? What we want to be able to do is, as we get this data, is now, since we're a Microsoft shop, is start moving into this generative AI type model where we can do true like Copilot. Imagine having Copilot. Where am I going to have my next failure greater than X% of whatever, and have it basically build. We've all done ChatGPT, build me an agenda for that. No, like give me my list of things I need to fix in priority order for blah, blah, PHMSA, and have it generate that data out automatically. You need data to do that. And that's what the stage of a company that we're in right now is, building that data set. That makes sense. That's the most exciting thing to me.
And is this data set hard to replicate? Like if someone was to come into the market, like what kind of head start do you think you have?
So when we first started, we thought we had probably a 3 to 5 year head start on cloud. There's still no competition. It's not easy to do, by the way. It's very, very difficult. We can just talk forever just in this room about just single sign-on. How do you do it? It's very difficult. These are enterprise organizations. So that's very difficult, but we were very fortunate. Phillips 66 was our first customer. They had actually built a system over 15 years, and I think they'd spent around $50 million building that system. They saw how successful we were in our solution. They hired a new chief digital officer, basically saying, hey, we're moving to the cloud. And by the way, OneBridge, do you guys want this IP? That was in 2017. We basically signed an agreement and took that. That probably gave us a 5-year head start. What the competitive moat that Matthew's asking about is that extremely difficult for basically somebody to say, hey, we've got all of our data in OneBridge. More importantly, we've operationalized it within our integrity management program. It's what we go to when PHMSA shows up, which is the regulatory agency. They show them their IMP, which is all OneBridge. OneSoft, sorry, I keep saying OneBridge because that's our operating units. OneSoft, very difficult for them to change that, and there would have to be a very significant reason for them to do it, and it would be very challenging for them to do it, to get that data that we've aggregated into a different platform.
Yeah, so we have 5 minutes left. Maybe I can open it up to audience questions. Okay, so the question is about the pricing model.
So pricing is, it's a difficult topic, and I get it a lot. Now that they're sticky, can you just, incrementally, hey, it's going to be X% more now. That's a balancing act, because the previous question is do you want them to continue as a customer? So yes, we could go to them and say, we're going to increase price 30%. And for the short term, they probably realistically pay it. But it would probably, at some number, I don't know what that number is, incentivize them to start looking for alternatives. Because what we don't want to do at this stage from our perspective, we have the goal to be the gorilla of integrity management globally, not just in the US, across the world. US contains about 60% of the market on pipeline. That's why we just hired somebody in EMEA so we can go get that. Latin America. Then, you know, lots of things open up. We would rather grow through accretion rather than what I would call potential hostile, where like we're going to take our customers today and really start jacking up prices. Now, with that said, we do have escalators inside our SaaS agreements now that we didn't have when we first started. We're automatically getting incremental increases every year, year over year, typical CPI or, you know, some X percentage on our agreements year over year. So inflation's good for us from the perspective that the price is higher that we get in the next year, as well as our new modules that we're building. That's really what we're trying to do now, is growth through that. But yes, at some point, we would rather than on core product, we like to think about as Google. Nobody in this room pays for Google. They make a lot of money on other mechanisms, right? So, you know, I always tell people that we're the Google of integrity management. We have the data. Now we have to figure out how to monetize it beyond a customer endpoint, right? So that we can keep aggregating logos and data. We'll figure out a way to do that. First, let's get the customers and let's get the data. That's really what we're trying to focus on right now.
Any other questions? Okay, well, maybe I can ask another one then. You provided guidance for 2024. Can you share some of your expectations and maybe financial and non-financial goals and milestones for this year?
So the last 2-3 years, we've done 50%, give or take, plus or minus over year growth. We just did guidance again where we foresee that happening again this year. So we gave it in the 15. We just crossed 10.4 million ending in December 23. We've given the 15 to 16 million this coming year, which is another 50% year over year. And we foresee that for a while. Non-revenue and EBITDA growth, our real thing to my previous thing is we need to add customers, right? We had customers that we thought we were going to just take longer to close those, just for everybody's awareness. There is some tightening in the industry right now from an expense perspective, specifically related to OpEx and CapEx. So we're looking at CapEx type ways to basically license models in there to see if we can speed it up. But our really objective now is to get customer logos, open up Latin America, start looking at getting deals in EMEA so we can start bringing those in, and then get the deals that are already in the queue closed, right? So you can watch our quarterly reports on those, but that's really what we're trying to do.
Anyone else? We have a slide on that. It's about the customer logos and penetration.
Yeah, you just said we ran out of time. Yeah, these are the customers running our solution today. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.